Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really big one, Joseph Heller's Catch-22. Our mission, basically, is to pull out the absolute core of this novel from our sources. We want to give you a really solid handle on the story, the characters, the themes, symbols, the whole context. Think of this as, well, your shortcut. If you need to sound like, Catch-22 inside out, maybe without having wrestled with every single page yourself, this is for you. We get it. Sometimes you just need the essentials, fast. And that's what we're aiming for, the crucial bits, the memorable stuff. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, and what jumps out right away with Catch-22, I think, is how it uses World War II, this very specific setting. American airmen on Pianosa, this island in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
But it uses that to talk about something much bigger. Things like the absurdity of war in general, how crushing bureaucracy can be, and, well, what sanity even means. It's satire. Really sharp satire.
Yeah. And the absolute heart of that satire, the thing everyone knows, is the Catch-22 itself. It's not just some quirky rule, is it? It's like the engine of the whole book's logic. Or illogic, maybe. So the sources lay it out pretty clearly. The regulation says if you're insane, you don't have to fly combat missions. Sounds fair enough, right?
Right. But here's the twist, the catch.
Exactly. Anyone who actually wants to get out of flying dangerous missions, anyone who recognizes the danger and wants to preserve their own life.
Well, that very desire proves they're sane.
Perfectly sane, and therefore fit to fly.
It's this perfect, inescapable loop. You claim you're crazy to avoid flying? Nope. That just proves you're rational.
Yeah.
Back in the plane you go.
It's genius in how maddening it is.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you have to think, why does that specific idea resonate so much, even now? It really gets at that power imbalance, doesn't it? The rule isn't there for the airman's benefit. It's for the system, the bureaucracy. It shows how these systems can just twist logic to keep control no matter the human cost. Makes you wonder where else you see that kind of thinking.
Okay, so for anyone needing that quick plot rundown, the kind of thing you'd say to show you've got the gist, it mostly revolves around Yossarian. He's our main guy, a bombardier. And his one big goal, which just gets stronger and stronger, is to stop flying missions. He is terrified of dying.
And understandably so.
Yeah.
Especially because the risk keeps going up. And a big reason for that is Colonel Cathcart. He's a really key character driving the absurdity, you could say. Cathcart's just obsessed with getting promoted. He thinks the way to do that is to make his men fly more and more missions.
Yeah.
So he just keeps raising the number required to finish a tour of duty. It's relentless and completely ignores the danger to the men.
Right. And Yossarian sees all this, sees people dying senselessly, and gets, well, desperate. He tries all sorts of things to get out of it. Our sources mention quite a few. He tries the insanity plea, obviously, but runs straight into the Catch-22. He spends a lot of time in the hospital, faking illnesses, exaggerating symptoms, malingering, basically, trying to game the system any way he can. And then there's that one time, it's almost surreal, where he actually moves the bomb line on a map, just secretly redraws it, hoping they'll cancel this really dangerous mission to Bologna because the target is suddenly behind their own lines.
Yeah, the Bologna mission, that's definitely one to remember if you're recalling the book. It's painted as incredibly dangerous. And there's this one disastrous run where Yossarian is flying erratically because he's terrified, and his navigator, Arfai, is just acting completely bizarre, totally detached. It really sums up the chaos, the feeling that nothing makes sense.
And the absurdity just ramps up, doesn't it? I mean, to the point where they end up bombing their own airfield.
Exactly. And that's not even an accident.
No, it's orchestrated by Milo Minderbinder, the mess officer who builds this huge global business syndicate.
M&M Enterprises.
Right. And for Milo, profit is everything. Literally everything. He makes deals with the Germans, bombs his own side because it's good for the syndicate. It's shocking.
It's Heller taking capitalism to its most extreme, logical, but amoral conclusion.
Yeah.
Milo's catchphrase sums it up. What's good for M&M Enterprises is good for the country. It's this completely warped justification. You see echoes of that sometimes, the idea of profit over absolutely everything else. Heller just pushes it to this grotesque limit.
But amidst all the dark comedy and, frankly, the unbelievable stuff, there are these moments of real gut-wrenching tragedy. Snowden's death. That's huge for Yossarian. One source puts it really bluntly, saying Yossarian sees Snowden get iced, sees his guts get splattered all up on his threads. It's graphic, yeah, but that raw horror is what really changes Yossarian. It makes him realize his life is worth more than this bunk-ass war, as the source puts it.
Absolutely. That image of Snowden, his insides literally spilling out, becomes this incredibly powerful symbol. It just demolishes any romantic ideas about war. It forces Yossarian, and us, I think, to face the brutal physical reality of it. It's about the fragility of the body, the cost of conflict. It grounds all the absurdity in something terribly real.
And then there's Orr, Yossarian's roommate.
Or,
He
yeah.
seems kind of like a goofball, right? Always crashing his plane.
Seems incompetent, yeah. But there's more to him.
Definitely. Because eventually, he just disappears. And it turns out, he rowed to Sweden in a life raft, all the way from the Mediterranean.
It's almost unbelievable. But it's crucial. Orr's escape, that journey in the raft. It symbolizes that maybe, just maybe, there is a way out, a way to find sanity, to preserve yourself, even if it seems impossible. It's this little flicker of hope.
So the main plot kind of builds towards Yossarian's own decision. He decides to desert. He calls it running to his responsibilities, heading for Sweden like Orr. And it's not presented as cowardly. It's him rejecting the whole insane system. Importantly, this comes right after he refuses a deal from Cathcart and the other slimeball, Colonel Korn.
Colonel Korn, yeah. A delightful character.
They offer him a way home, safe and sound, but only if he basically lies for them. If he goes back and tells everyone how great Cathcart and Korn are, endorses the whole system he hates, and he won't do it.
And that refusal is key. It shows Yossarian's growth. It's not just about saving his own skin anymore. He sees the moral emptiness of the whole setup and refuses to be part of it, even if it costs him his easy way out. So deserting becomes his final, definitive act against Catch-22 and everything it represents.
Okay, so let's talk characters. If you want to sound like you know the book, knowing the key players is essential. We've obviously got Yossarian, driven by survival, Milo Minderbinder, the ultimate capitalist, Colonels Cathcart and Korn, the ambitious, incompetent, bureaucratic nightmare duo.
Yeah, and beyond them, there's this amazing, sprawling cast. Each one kind of highlights a different facet of the absurdity, like Doc Danica, the flight surgeon who's terrified of flying. He puts his name on flight logs for planes he's not on, just to get credit. And then, hilariously, tragically, a plane he's supposed to be on crashes, and the paperwork says he's dead, even though he's standing right there, alive. But the paperwork says dead, so officially he's dead. It's pure Kafka.
Incredible. And then there's the chaplain. Robert Oliver Shipman, he's this really timid guy, an Anabaptist minister, and he's just losing his faith completely amidst all the chaos. People mess with him constantly. Yossarian keeps signing the chaplain's name to censor letters, causing all sorts of confusion.
Yeah, poor chaplain.
Yeah.
Then you have Nately. He's the young, idealistic one, falls in love with a prostitute in Rome, genuinely believes in the cause, the nobility of the war, which makes his sudden death even more brutal. It just smashes that naive view.
And connected to him is Nately's whore. She's complex, pragmatic maybe, not just a stereotype. Her younger sister becomes important later, someone Yossarian feels he needs to protect, like trying to salvage some innocence.
Exactly. We mentioned Orr, the secret escaper. Dunbar is another one in the hospital with Yossarian. His philosophy is to make life unpleasant, to make it last longer. Because time slows down when you're miserable.
Which is a take.
Yeah.
Then there's Havermeyer, the bombardier who never misses, just totally detached.
Right. And McWatt, the pilot who likes buzzing Yossarian's tent for laughs until his fatal accident, which also kills Kid Sampson in this really gruesome way.
Don't forget Major, Major, Major. The guy promoted by a computer error, whose name is Major, Major, Major. He hides from everyone, only sees people in his office when he's officially not in.
Just perfect bureaucratic logic again. And ex-PFC Wintergreen, always going AWOL, always digging holes as punishment. But he secretly controls all the communication, the records. He has this hidden power.
Lieutenant Scheisskopf, obsessed with parades.
Oh yeah, hilariously obsessed. Appleby, the perfect soldier, great at ping pong, has flies in his eyes until Orr beats him while drunk.
Chief White Halfote, the Native American officer with the oil-cursed family history, who just wants to die quietly of pneumonia.
Aris Yossarian's navigator on that Bologna mission, just completely amoral, commits this horrific crime in Rome, and genuinely doesn't understand why it's wrong. It's baffling.
Major de Coverley, the imposing guy who just appears, rents apartments for the officers, plays horseshoes. Very mysterious.
Hungry Joe, the photographer obsessed with dead bodies, plagued by nightmares. Kid Sampson, who we mentioned, tragically sliced in half. It's this huge gallery of characters, each broken or absurd in their own way. And together, they paint this picture of, the madness of it all.
Okay, let's pivot slightly to the big ideas, the themes.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Catch-22, you need to hit these. Number one, obviously, is the absurdity of war. We've touched on this a lot. It's not heroic. It's illogical, chaotic, senseless. The mission quotas, Catch-22 itself, prime examples.
Yeah, absolutely central. And tied right into that is the theme of bureaucracy. The military machine is shown as this Kafkaesque nightmare. It cares more about rules, paperwork, and its own power than about the actual people. The rules become traps, like Catch-22, designed to control, not protect.
And that leads into the whole sanity versus insanity question, doesn't it? The book completely flips it. Wanting to live is seen as crazy by the system. Being willing to die, that's sane. Heller really makes you question what sanity even means in such an insane environment. Maybe survival is the only sane goal.
Precisely. Then there's the theme of profit and capitalism, pushed to the extreme with Milo Minderbinder. His syndicate shows how the pursuit of profit can corrupt everything, literally everything. Ethics, loyalty, human life. None of it matters next to the bottom line. It's a very pointed satire.
And underneath it all, there's Yossarian's deep, fundamental fear of death. And through that fear, especially after Snowden, comes this growing realization of how precious life actually is, which is the total opposite of how the military seems to value it.
Definitely. There's also the loss of innocence. You see characters like Nately start with ideals, but the war just grinds them down. It forces them to face ugly truths about violence, about human nature. They come out cynical, changed.
And finally, I think it's about the individual against the system. Yossarian, or even Doktanica in his way, they're all struggling against this massive, impersonal, often irrational military machine. It's about trying to hold on to yourself, your sanity, your life, when the system doesn't care.
Exactly. These themes weave together to create this really powerful critique, not just of war, but of power, of systems, of human nature itself. It's set in WWII, but the questions it asks are timeless.
Okay, one more thing to really nail sounding knowledgeable. The symbols. These are key literary touchstones. We've hammered Catch-22 itself, the symbol of any inescapable, illogical rule, and Snowden's guts, that raw, visceral image symbolizing the true horror and fragility of life in war.
Yeah, and don't forget the soldier in white, the guy totally wrapped in bandages, unrecognizable. He represents the anonymity of death in war, how soldiers just become these interchangeable, dehumanized casualties.
Mila's syndicate, too, that's a symbol, right, of capitalism running wild, corrupting everything, turning people into things to be bought and sold.
Absolutely. And the bomb line on the map, the one Yossarian moves, it symbolizes how arbitrary danger is, how information is manipulated, how lines are drawn and redrawn for reasons that have nothing to do with reality on the ground.
And Orr's raft, his escape to Sweden.
A huge symbol of hope, maybe? The possibility of escape, of finding sanity somewhere else, getting outside the madness. It's small, but it's there. These symbols add so much depth, they really stick with you.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. We've taken a deep dive into Catch-22. We walked through the plot, Yossarian's fight for survival against Cathcart's quotas, and the Catch-22 trap. We've met the key characters, this whole unforgettable gallery of the absurd and the tragic. We've unpacked the big themes: absurdity, bureaucracy, sanity, profit, life, death.
The individual versus the system.
Exactly. And we've highlighted those key symbols that really carry the novel's weight. This should give you a really strong footing. You should feel pretty confident talking about the core of Catch-22 now.
Yeah, you got the narrative, the people, the big ideas, the symbolic language. It's a solid toolkit for understanding and discussing the book.
Our goal here really was to arm you, to give you what you need to talk about Catch-22 with confidence, even if you haven't personally spent weeks untangling its narrative. You should be able to hit the main points, discuss its impact, and, yeah, sound like you definitely know your stuff.
Which brings us to maybe a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about it. Catch-22 was written decades ago, about a war even further back. But how much of its absurdity, its critique of bureaucracy, of power, of how human life gets valued or devalued, how much of that still feels relevant today? Where do you see the logic of Catch-22, maybe in different forms, operating in the world now, in corporations, in politics, in everyday life? It's kind of unsettling how much it can still resonate, isn't it? Something to think about.